as I said in the beginning, every Saturday I come here for a few minutes to talk about industry things in general, to talk about experiences, to share ideas, to share some tips, because it's very important for me to help new entrepreneurs that want to launch their brands. That's my mission. I made it my mission because I know how difficult that is. I have been working for a long time, over a decade, with new entrepreneurs, with people from all over the world and people that come from different backgrounds, very different backgrounds. They come to me saying they want to launch their own brand, and I've been through many different projects that started in different points, some of them with a lot of experience already, most of them with none experience at all. So during this process of helping these entrepreneurs launching their own brands, starting their first collections, producing their first prototypes, producing first samples, and all of us, we know how doing something for the first time is always very challenging, especially if you are doing that as a business, because it involves money, it involves other people. So it's especially challenging, and it's especially important to be as prepared as possible, to be as educated as possible on the topic, because of course that will save you a lot of money and time. That sometimes time is even more precious than money. So to help you on this, and as I was saying, we are practically in the end of the year. It's 1 month left. So we decided to do this season of Shoe Squad Talks about Kickstart in 2025. How to kickstart your shoe brand in 2025. So last week I talked about industry language, how the industry language is unknown to many people, and how it is important to actually have a better idea how people communicate within the footwear industry. And today, this is the second talk of this season, we are going to talk about the first meeting. So I see many times people giving wrong information to the manufacturers or the suppliers on their first meetings. And you know that the first meeting, the first face-to-face meeting, the first time you talk about your project to a potential manufacturer is very impactful. We all know that the image has a very strong power, and the first time you get in touch with a person leaves in that person some idea about you. Most of the times that idea stays for a long time, and if it's the wrong idea they get about you, it will take a long time to make them have a better idea. So I decided to talk more about the first meeting with a supplier or a manufacturer. For the case of this talk today, I'm going just to refer to the first meeting with your manufacturer, with a potential manufacturer, because most of the times before selecting the manufacturer you are going to work with, probably you are going to visit 2, 3, there's no point in visiting a lot of them, but at least you are going to visit 2 or 3 of potential manufacturers to be able to choose. So, about the first meeting, the first impression, of course, is very important. And so I am going to tell you exactly how you ask something in order to actually have the best answer possible, the most efficient answer possible. Because on a meeting, you want answers, you are looking for answers, you have an expectation. And the manufacturer is also looking for answers. The manufacturer also usually has an expectation when he accepts a meeting with a potential new customer. So don't forget about that. You have an expectation, but the manufacturer that is seated on the same table as you are also has an expectation. And on top of the expectation the manufacturer has, most of the times that person doesn't have a lot of free time to spend with all potential new customers, so he needs to receive information that is good enough for him to decide in his head if that client is the best client for his factory, for his or hers, mostly his, but for, I'm going to say his many times, but sometimes it's also a woman that receives you. And it's important for them, for that person, for the manufacturer or the commercial person that is in the meeting with you, to have enough information to decide if they're going to commit to your project or if they are going just to give you some quick answers to see you go as fast as possible. It's important for you to understand that it's your starting point, but of course it's not the starting point of your manufacturer. So you are thinking at the same table, talking about the same topic, but you guys are thinking about completely different things during this process. So be careful that it is very important to understand what are the expectations of the manufacturer. I prepared a few examples of specific goals that we try to achieve during our first meeting, specific answers that we look for. When is the first time we go to a manufacturer with a new entrepreneur wanting to start their own brand, wanting to start their first production, their first collection. I prepared just a few examples to give you an idea how asking things in a different way can change absolutely the answer that you are going to get. So it's important that it's clear for everyone that watches or listens to this talk to understand that this information is important and powerful for you that are already starting your brand and already have some ideas, already studied some things, but at this point you really think you could use some help because there's too much information going around online, and it seems to you that none of it is making a lot of sense because there's not a correct sequence. So you go online, you search for manufacturers, then you search for suppliers, and then you search for how to make a shoe, and then you search for sustainable materials. But the difficulty is to you at this point is probably how you coordinate all these topics within so much information that is distributed on the internet, and without experience it's going to be difficult for you to make it work. So these very specific examples will help you to look to that information with other eyes. And this is also for someone that is still thinking on how to do it, thinking about maybe it's my turn, maybe it's a good thing, no, maybe not, it's not a good thing, maybe I'm not strong enough, maybe I don't have enough money, maybe I don't know enough about footwear industry. Let me tell you, no one knows enough before they start, no one is prepared when they start. So the best you can do is believe in yourself and say, okay, this is what I want, so I'm going to look for ways of learning what I need to do to actually get there. So either if you already started or if you haven't started at all, it's just a dream inside of your head that you haven't even spoke about with anyone, you are in the right place and I can help you. So if my examples are not good enough for your specific project, you can send me your questions. I'll write back to you how you should approach to the manufacturers with that same doubt. So to be clear, last week we talked about having clear communication, how having a clear communication is extremely important, but of course you know that. And we talked about the industry language. That is a way of communicating with the industry that is more efficient than another way. And the main point of that communication is how you move from identifying things to feeling things. So last week I said names identify and feelings or senses clarify. So last week we talked about this. If you have interest in knowing this, you can go back to the previous talk. It's on our YouTube or in our social media. You can get them, or you can just send us a WhatsApp or a message and we give it to you. But it's important to go there and to understand what I meant about when I said that names identify and senses clarify. Go there and understand that, because it will be very helpful when you try to communicate with your manufacturers, with suppliers, or even when you are looking for a sourcing agent. It's important that you understand what that means, that names identify things, but senses clarify them. So that will save you a lot of time. Today, the idea here and the main goal is, as I said before, is that you understand that when you ask a question, you are most of the times opening a topic. And by opening a topic, you open your possibilities, or the possibilities to the person that you are asking the question to. You open a lot of possibilities just by asking a simple question. Usually in the footwear industry, and I mentioned this before in other talks, usually when you ask something just plain and simple, the answer is most of the times, it depends. Because the answers in the footwear industry depend on a lot of variables, and it's very difficult that you indicate all the variables in your question. So most of the times the answer is going to be it depends. And an answer that starts like that, it depends, it's not an answer that you want to have, because it will not tell you anything. It depends on what. So you open a topic when you create a simple question without thinking exactly how you could ask the same thing and have a different answer that is not it depends. Of course, anyway, most of the times it's very probable that your potential manufacturer or your potential supplier or sourcing agent start the conversation or start the answer by it depends, and then it formulates the rest of the information. But questions open the topic, and inquiries get you the right answer. So let's see with some very specific and simple examples how we can move from asking simple questions that open many possible answers and not the answer you want to hear, to making kind of an inquiry to the person and the person in front of you in order to have the right question. Remember what I said in the beginning. When you sit at the table for the first meeting with a manufacturer or a sourcing agency, you have certain expectations, and sometimes you didn't even sit down before to establish what were your expectations. It's important to prepare the meetings, to prepare the calls. Write down what are your expectations for that call or that meeting, and at the beginning of the meeting or the call, you clarify what are your expectations, what are your goals with that meeting. And of course, respect that the other person also has a lot of goals for that same meeting. And sometimes the goals are not coincident. So, a specific example. I'm going to tell you the goal, how I usually see people asking that question to achieve the goal, and how it should have been done. So, for example, when you start a meeting, of course, one of the first things on the meeting is to introduce people around the table. Who's who and what are we doing there? But who is who is the first point before we start trying to understand what everyone wants. So there's a first moment in which you introduce yourself. You have a space to introduce yourself and to make the other person understand what are you doing there. So most people, most entrepreneurs jump right into talking about their brand and how they have this special concept for a new shoe, a new idea, a new concept, and they are very committed in launching it because they can't find it on the market. It's something completely new. I hear this many times. A person starting a meeting by stating to a manufacturer that that manufacturer probably already produced thousands of different styles. And probably that manufacturer knows much more than you do about the styles that are possible to find in the market. But many times entrepreneurs do a small research and they state on the meeting, starting the meeting, they state like this, they have no problems in saying, I have this special concept that is great because of this and this, and I cannot find it anywhere. It doesn't exist, so I'm going to sell very well. This is the way I see people introducing themselves. And this comes with a few problems. First of all, most of the times the research was not that deep, so probably something like that exists on the market already somewhere, and it puts you in a position that you show that you don't know exactly what you are talking about. So be careful with that. My recommendation, do it the efficient way. What is the efficient way? I think I'm going to need more water. I'm going to ask here my assistant to give me more water. Thank you, Teresa. The efficient way of introducing yourself, from my perspective and from my experience, from what I've seen over the years, is, as you know, people relate with people. It's easier that a person relates with you than relates automatically with your project or your brand concept that doesn't exist yet, most of the times. So thinking about that, people relate with people. Tell your story. Start by telling your story. Of course that you are going to tell a tiny version of your story, because at this point the manufacturer is looking at the watch saying how long this is going to take. So tell a tiny version of your story. And what should you highlight? Of course, highlight everything related with shoes, with footwear, and anything that is related, for example, with the business, with sales, with marketing, with logistics. Highlight, if possible. Imagine that you worked in a shoe shop when you were studying in the university, or you still work, or you have this experience of selling shoes to consumers. This is very important. It's important to tell your manufacturer about that experience. Okay, I worked in a shoe shop, so I understand well the difficulties of communicating a shoe information to a customer. I understand that customers have difficulties with sizing, for example. So everything that you have in your background, your experience that is related with shoes, tell them about it. Tell the manufacturer about it. Include in your story, in your life story. If you've never done anything related with shoes, highlight the other parts, eventual business parts. Imagine that you organized an event, charity event to sell things. It's good too. You have skills of organization. You know how things that have to be sold, they have to have a price and a markup. And so by explaining those things about yourself, those experiences, even if they have nothing to do with shoes, it puts you in a position of showing the manufacturer, your future business partner, that you know some things about business. Okay, so don't say you know about business things that you don't know, but at the same time give them some pieces of information, and tell this story in an humble way, in a sweet way, as much as possible. And the other thing is, sometimes entrepreneurs tend to do not share everything about the project, sometimes because they don't know and sometimes because they don't want. But if you have someone that is supporting your project, for example, your family members, mother, father, a brother or a sister, if one of your family members is walking the talk with you, is with you on this project, supporting you, you mention that. You say, okay, I'm here and my mother or my father or my sister or someone in my family is also part of this project. That shows strength. It's not just you, it's you and somebody else. Of course that if you have also someone that is a potential investor, you should also say that to the manufacturer and say, okay, there's this person that it can be my investor, or it's going to be my investor, and I also have to give this person accurate information about the suppliers that I'm choosing. So talk about any support that you might have. This is very important. And the other very important thing is, during this phase of your presentation, you finalize your presentation and then give space to the manufacturer to say something, you finalize this with what I call usually an expression of interest. So you are telling something about you, telling your tiny story of life, but you are also giving the manufacturer the possibility of telling something about themselves. So create a question. It can be this one that I'm going to tell you, or any other question that you can come up with, that you may come up with. Create a question that makes them feel important, make them feel that their opinion, their expertise, their experience is very, very important for you. So you can say something like, okay, I know that you see brands come and go every day, because you are in the industry for many years, so probably you have seen many come and go. Usually when a brand comes and starts their project with you, they stay for a long time, they grow here with you. Is there this possibility? Do you like when this happens? Give them some time to say if they have brands that they started the first collection. So highlight that their experience is important for you, and specifically their experience with new projects, with new brands. You can ask them, is there any, you can even have have a question that is a little bit funny. For example, you can say, is there any week that you don't start a new project that happens, and you give them a chance to talk and to start entering in the mood of entrepreneurship. So ask these questions and make them talk about their experience. I can tell you that most shoe factories probably receive inquiries from new brands every week, some of them more than one per week, or more, sometimes more than one per day. So this is going to be true. Probably the manufacturer is going to smile and say, yes, I receive a lot of inquiries from entrepreneurs. And then it's time for you to explain your project. So after you make a brief introduction of yourself, you explain a little bit about your project. Don't make it bigger than what it is, but also don't bring it to the kindergarten. Of course that your project is starting, of course that everyone knows that at the table, but I see entrepreneurs commonly doing things like this. For example, I'm going to consult some of the notes that I did along the years, and I hear, for example, I want to launch my shoe brand soon, and usually soon is 3-4 months, something like this. It's a very short period. If you go to the manufacturer for the first time and you say that you want to launch your brand in 4 months, the manufacturer is going to, maybe there's no time to develop prototypes. So be careful with that. And manufacturers say, entrepreneurs say, for example, I'm looking for manufacturers that can produce my designs with high quality. And also say, I'm a startup, so I'll buy small MOQs and start growing slowly. So this information give a lot, these words give a lot of information to the manufacturer that probably it's not the best information. So you just told them that you want to launch quickly, that you are not going to give time to the development to occur and to be very good. You just told them that you have no idea how the lead times work in the industry, because you said you want to launch in 4 months and you are just starting. And you also told them that you are here for the minimums, you are here for the MOQ, you are here to start small and then grow. As you can imagine, start small and grow is nice, but doesn't pay bills at the factory. So the manufacturer probably does not want to hear that, like what you just said. Oh, I'm just a startup, so you should help me. That is not the way you should put things. So an efficient way to say it, and I can use now this moment to say, if you register for our shoe brand talks, for our lives, After the live, in a couple of days, you will receive the summary of this live, of this talk. So you will have written everything that I'm saying, and how the question is usually done and how it should be done. So you can take notes, of course, but I will send you the summary of the meeting if you register for the meeting, of the call. I'm talking about meeting, so I'll send you the summary of this talk if you register for it, okay? So, what is the efficient way to explain your project? Is, for example, imagine, I am preparing my brand to launch before July. Make sure that before July is like 6 to 9 months from now. Also, if you say, I'm preparing to launch my brand in 2 years, also the manufacturer probably loses interest. But if you say a reasonable amount of time that is good enough for the development and preparation, and it's not too short or too long, you got their attention. So you say, I'm preparing my brand to launch in July. Give them a month, a specific month. Don't say August, because it's not good for the industry, but say, for example, July, or say, for example, next spring, summer, or something like that. Give them a specific target date to launch, a reasonable one, but give them a specific one. It's important. Don't say soon. Say in this month. Even if you are not sure yet, it's a plan. So it's not that you are lying. It's that the ideal plan would be this one. And you have to have a plan. You are at the table having a meeting with a manufacturer. So you have to have a plan. So do that. Give them a specific date. And also, say something like this. I've been working on the first designs of my collection, and I'm preparing my web shop or my website. So you tell them, giving this information, you tell them that you are working for them to start working. So I have been preparing my designs, and I am also preparing my web shop. You are giving them this information. You are working on the designs of your first collection, means that you will have a second and a third. So say that in that way. Inform that you have been working on the design so they can start working, okay? And you can say, for example, my first collection has three styles, or up to 3 styles, or 6 styles, doesn't matter. Don't say you have one style. Even if you are thinking about launching with one style, you can say that your collection has 3 designs. Doesn't mean that you are going to produce the 3 of them, and doesn't mean that you have to explain all of this now. Now you just say, my first collection has 3 designs, or 4 or 5 or 6. Give them also, again, the same thing. Not a very big number, not a very small number. So you say, for example, 3 styles. And you say, I want to produce and sell this and improve my next designs with the feedback that I will collect from the consumers. So if you say, I have this collection, I'm going to sell and improve the next designs with the feedback that I'm going to collect from the consumers, you are giving to your manufacturer an idea of improvement, of continuous activity. So you are starting, you plan some designs, you now are going to introduce the manufacturer, that is the person in front of you, and you already know that the next steps are selling the shoes, collecting feedback, improving the designs of the second collection. That this information gives the manufacturer a sense of continuous, a sense of project, a sense of business, and not a sense of launching a brand like in throwing it to the air. So it's important to give them this sense of continuity. In the end, it shows that you have a plan. So, and it's good, it's important to have a plan. Goal number 3, example number 3, is a very common one. The goal of this question is find out what is the factory MOQ. For MOQ means minimum order quantity, for those that don't know yet, but for those that are thinking about launching a brand in 2025, you need to know that MOQ means minimum order quantity. So from now on, I will just say MOQ. So everyone during the first meeting wants to know what is the factory MOQ, that factory. Why? Because they want to produce a small quantity, so they want to know. And usually they just ask, what is your MOQ? And the answer is, it depends. And it also depends on the mood of the person that is on the other side of the table, and depends on everything you said before. But if you ask, what is your MOQ? probably the answer is not going to be very straightforward and not very useful to you. So my recommendation is that you can say something like this. It's my understanding that for an efficient production run, it's very important that you have the right quantity of shoes to produce. So would you be able to organize your production to produce 50 pairs of shoes per style? And do you think it's a good goal to increase the quantity from the first production to the second production from 50 to 150 pairs, for example? So by saying this, instead of asking what is your MOQ, and you ask the person, or you put it on the table like this, do you think it's possible to organize your production line to produce 50 pairs of shoes per style? It's different from asking what is your MOQ, because when you say are you able to organize your production line, you are talking about their expertise, and their first answer is going to be yes, even if 50 is not the number that they usually say. Probably they usually say 150 or 200 or 300. But if you ask them, it's possible to organize your production line to produce 50 pairs, they will answer like proudly, yes, I can. Even if I don't want, but yes, I can. So the answer of MOQ starts with yes. Starting with yes is very, very good because from the first yes onwards, it's more probable that people answer yes to the following one. So be careful. Don't just throw the question, what is your MOQ? Because you're showing that you haven't studied the factory before. Because before going to a meeting, you should know a few details about the factory. Example, how can you find out what is the factory MOQ without asking them? Maybe if you study the factory a little bit more and ask them, for example, what is the average quantity of shoes they produce per day? If they tell you they produce per day 500 pairs of shoes, probably they will work with quantities between 50 and 150 for MOQ. But if they right away tell you that their production per day is 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000, probably they will not produce you 150 pairs. So show respect and show them that you study them and ask the questions the right way. Don't just throw to the table what is your MOQ, because you will not have a good answer for your project. Okay? The fourth question example that I'm going to use now is another one that is very typical. What are the lead times for prototypes and samples? So this is always the most frequent question after what is your MOQ, and entrepreneurs just say, what is your lead time for prototypes and samples? Like that, just throw to the table. My recommendation would be something like this. Okay, I understand that every shoe is a different project. I understand that the lead time to produce it depends on multiple factors. I understand that also depend on the suppliers of the materials lead times and the complexity of the shoe itself. I understand that. Do you think it's possible to produce one prototype in 3 weeks or less than 3 weeks? Okay, if you put this like that, you are asking them to tell you what they think about something, what is their opinion about something, not just what is the fact. Because if you ask what is your lead time for prototypes and samples, they will answer again, it depends, because it does depend on multiple things. But you don't want that answer. So if you don't want that answer, ask in a different way. Bring them to the exercise, bring the person in front of you to making the exercise with you, to build the project with you, and ask in a nice way, do you think it's possible to produce my prototypes in less than 3 weeks, or less than 4 weeks, or less than a month? Use a specific period of time that seems reasonable to you. Don't ask them if it's possible to produce a prototype for tomorrow, because that's not going to happen, but create a time that makes sense. From my experience, 3 weeks, 4 weeks makes sense, total sense to ask them. They might say, yes, it's possible, or no, it's not possible because I have my sample department completely full, so I will not be able to produce in 3 weeks. It's going to take me 5 or 6. But anyway, they will give you an exact answer, 3, 4, 5 or 6, and not an answer that is, it depends, because it's not an answer that you want. Then you can also, in this same process of the lead times, add to the conversation, say, okay, and after making the comments to the prototype, I will order 2 pairs of samples per color of each style. Do you think it's possible to produce those final samples in 2 weeks after you receive all the materials? With this question, you let them know that not only you already have a plan, so you will have prototypes, you will make the comments to the prototypes and ask for corrections, and you will order X amount of samples per color, 1 sample per color, 2 samples per color, whatever is good for your business, but you are telling them that you know that that's the next step. And so you are a savvy person on the industry, you know what's the next step, and you are asking them if it's possible to do something in a certain period of time with certain matters solved. So the question is, can you do my samples, can you produce my samples, in my final samples in 2 weeks after all the materials arrive? This means that you understand that they cannot finalize their samples before they get all the materials from all the suppliers. So instead of saying what is the lead time for prototypes and samples, think about this and put the question on a specific point in time. Can you do this for this moment? Can you do that for that moment? I understand that you have to deal with these variables, but can you do it for this moment or that moment? So I hope these 4 examples actually helped you a lot in planning the first meeting.
We have a question.
We have a question. Someone is telling me that we have a question. Can you give me the question?
The question is, what about when the manufacturer lives abroad? Any advices on how to improve that communication on first meeting? Should we meet in person? Is that mandatory?
Okay, great. Most of the times, entrepreneur lives in a different country from the manufacturer. It's most of the times. It's very, very frequent. In those cases, most of the times, the entrepreneur has a sourcing agent that does this communication with the factory. But if you want to do it yourself and do not have another person to represent you in the country, a sourcing agency, my recommendation is get a video call. Schedule a video call with that person if you cannot come in person. Of course, if you can come in person, that's the best. You sit at the table, you see what's happening in the factory, you understand much better everything if you can come in person. If you cannot come in person for multiple reasons, set up a video call meeting and try to sit them at the table. You might have some problems in some factories because they might not have people that speak your language very well, or at least English, because most people communicate in English in this shoe industry, but some factories might not have a person that feels comfortable with speaking English online. That depends on the factories. But my recommendation, very specific recommendation, is synthesize your doubts in 3-4 points at the time. If you need more than 1 meeting, it's okay. But the important thing is to start the communication. So write down 3, 4, 5 smart questions, the way I just told you to do that. Write down those questions and, if possible, send them via email and discuss them on during the meeting. Send them in advance, but please be very smart with the questions and ask a few questions just for the first meeting. That will make them want to actually do the meeting with you. And because they have the questions in advance, they can prepare the answers quickly and they don't lose time. So the most important asset that we all have is time, and for a factory is even more important. So if you cannot come and you have to do online, try to do a video call and try to send in advance 4-5 question stops. Resume your information there. If you have 10 questions, you send 5 first. Then you have a meeting, they see you, you explain a little bit more, and then you send the other questions via email on the next communication, okay? Don't throw them 25 different questions because they don't have the time to answer. Very simple and clear emails because they read like that in W. Usually I say they read in W like that, not all the text. So do that, okay? Very simple, straightforward questions, but done in a smart way, not what is on your MOQ. Okay, I hope it was helpful, and if you have any other questions, just send them to me. You will also have the chance to ask me all the questions in the world next 7th and 8th of December. We are giving a workshop. I'll be live on 7th and 8th of December at 4 p.m. GMT, but you can find all this information online on the on Instagram. On the bio you can register for this workshop. It's going to be amazing, and I'm extremely excited because there's still a long time to go until the workshop, and I just confirmed that we already have 114 entrepreneurs registered for the workshop. Promise that I'm going to prepare an amazing workshop for you, where I'll go through the process of launching a brand from this perspective on how to do it on the production part, the development, the samples, the prototypes, the materials, and the process, the lead times, and some prices. So it's going to be a very important moment for you to put all your questions. So we will be live on Saturday at 4 p.m. GMT, and again on Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT. And in the end of that workshop, I will also present my program Shoebiz for Wise, if you want to know more and learn and prepare yourself to kickstart in 2025. So the workshop is free. Go there, register for the workshop, and meanwhile, if you have questions, you can simply schedule a one-on-one call with me, and we can go through them before the workshop, and then when you get there, you are prepared to absorb all this information. Okay? Have a great day, and it was amazing to be here again to share all my experience and a few tips to succeed in the footwear industry. Have a nice Sunday.